Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. We are diving into something super interesting today. It's all about acts of charity during Ramadan.
Awesome.
So, our source material talks about both the expected and some surprisingly unconventional acts of charity
I'm interested.
that you might not expect, like taking care of yourself or the environment. So to give you a little teaser, I was like, wait a minute, planting a tree can be an act of charity.
It's funny how we think of charity as outward, right? As something we do for others.
Right.
But this deep dive really challenges that.
Yeah.
And it makes us think about how even our actions, even towards ourselves, can actually be a form of giving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
So when I first saw that, I was like, what?
Yeah.
But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense.
Right.
It's like, wow. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Our source material breaks down these acts of charity into categories for oneself, for animals, for the environment, and ongoing charity.
Yeah.
But it starts by acknowledging
those like more familiar acts of charity, like zakat, which just as a reminder for people who might not know, is that obligatory almsgiving, calculated as a percentage of your wealth.
Right, exactly.
And then, of course, there's sadaqah, which is that voluntary charity, right? You're giving out of generosity and compassion.
Right.
But then the source takes this really interesting turn, and it delves into these, like I said, less obvious categories, starting with charity towards yourself.
Okay, so this is where it gets kind of deep, right?
Yeah, this is where it gets really thought-provoking.
Okay.
The source material is arguing that taking care of yourself, your physical and spiritual well-being, is essential not just for you, but for the benefit of others.
Okay.
And so it highlights actions like seeking Islamic knowledge, controlling your anger, and maintaining good health as forms of charity towards yourself.
Okay, so I have to push back a little bit here.
Okay.
Because some people might say that focusing on self-care during Ramadan, a time when we're supposed to be dedicating ourselves to worship and helping others, seems, I don't know, a bit selfish.
Sure.
So how would you respond to that?
That's a valid point. I mean, think about it this way, though. If you're not taking care of yourself, how effectively can you really serve others?
Right.
The source material emphasizes that by nurturing your physical and spiritual health, you're basically equipping yourself to be a better person for others.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
You need to replenish yourself in order to have something to give.
Exactly. The source material gives this example, like, imagine you're trying to help someone carry a heavy load.
Right.
But you yourself are exhausted and weak.
Yeah.
You're not going to be much help, are you?
Not really, no.
But if you're strong and energized,
Yeah.
you can offer genuine support. And so it's the same principle with our spiritual and emotional well-being.
So by investing in ourselves, we're actually investing in our ability to help others.
Yes.
Love that.
Right. It's all about that balance. Ramadan is a time for heightened spirituality and self-reflection. And part of that journey involves taking care of ourselves so we can emerge from this month stronger, more capable of making a positive impact.
It makes me think about seeking Islamic knowledge, which the source mentions as a key act of charity towards yourself.
Right.
So could you elaborate a little bit on how that connects to personal growth and ultimately benefiting others?
Of course. Seeking Islamic knowledge is about deepening your understanding of your faith, which in turn helps you navigate life's challenges, make informed decisions, and cultivate a stronger connection with God.
Right.
And the source material emphasizes that this knowledge isn't meant to be kept to yourself. You're supposed to share it and use it to benefit others.
Right. I see.
Guna.
So it's like a ripple effect.
Exactly.
You gain knowledge, you grow as a person, and then you share that knowledge and wisdom with others, inspiring them to grow as well.
Exactly. The source gives the example of like someone who learns about the importance of patience through Islamic teachings. Now that person becomes more patient in their interactions, creating a more harmonious environment. Or someone who gains a deeper understanding of charity and its impact, they may then be inspired to be more generous with their time, their resources or knowledge, creating a positive impact on their community.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
But it makes so much sense.
Right.
So taking care of yourself, especially through seeking knowledge, strengthening your faith, it sets off this chain reaction of positive change.
Exactly.
That extends beyond yourself and benefits the wider community.
Exactly. And this concept of interconnectedness, right,
Yeah.
is central to understanding the full scope of these charitable acts during Ramadan. It's not just about these isolated actions, but it's about how our actions, even those directed towards ourselves, can have a ripple effect and contribute to a larger good.
This is already blowing my mind. And we haven't even gotten to the acts of charity towards animals and the environment.
I know, right?
This is really shifting my perspective.
That's pretty cool.
On what it means to give back.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get to those,
what
about things like exercise and healthy eating?
Sure.
The source material mentions those too.
Yeah.
So how do those fit into this idea of charity towards yourself?
Those are great examples, right, of how physical well-being ties into this.
Okay.
Think of it this way. If you're constantly battling fatigue or health issues, it's going to be much harder to focus on your spiritual growth, let alone extend your energy outwards to help others.
It's so true. I know when I'm not taking care of myself physically, I'm definitely more irritable and less patient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source material emphasizes that by taking care of our physical health, we're ensuring that we have the strength and vitality to fulfill our obligations to ourselves, our families, and our communities.
Right.
It's about recognizing that our bodies are a gift.
Yeah.
And caring for them is a form of gratitude and stewardship.
This is really making me rethink my whole approach to self-care.
Yeah.
I always thought of it as something I did for myself.
Right.
But now I'm starting to see it as an act of service.
It's a powerful shift in perspective.
It is. It's like it reframes self-care as something essential, not selfish.
Exactly.
It's about investing in our well-being so that we can give back.
Yes, you got it.
Okay.
It's about multiplying our capacity to give back.
I am so curious to hear more about these other categories of charity, especially the ones that surprised me.
I bet.
Like, how can caring for animals or the environment be considered acts of charity?
Well, get ready for a fascinating dive into those areas.
Okay.
Because the source material has some truly inspiring insights.
Right.
It challenges us to expand our understanding of charity beyond those traditional notions.
Okay.
And consider this, like, interconnectedness of all living things.
I'm officially hooked. Let's move on to those other categories.
Let's do it.
So we've talked about how taking care of ourselves can be like a form of charity, right?
Yeah.
Which is like mind-blowing in itself, but
I know, it's so cool.
well, I really want to hear about these other categories.
Okay.
Especially acts of charity towards animals and the environment.
Yeah.
Those really caught my eye, you know.
This is where things get really fascinating
Yeah.
because the source material really highlights the idea that we're all connected, right? Like all living beings, and how what we do impacts not just ourselves, but the whole ecosystem. And it stresses how even small acts of kindness toward animals can be super rewarding.
I've always had a soft spot for animals.
Yeah.
It just like feels right to treat them with compassion.
Yeah.
But I never really thought about it as an act of charity in this context.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of actions are we talking about here?
Well, the source material brings up things like feeding stray animals, giving them water, especially when it's hot out, speaking out against animal cruelty, even like just putting a bowl of water outside for birds can be like a really beautiful act of charity.
I love that. It's so simple, but it can make such a difference.
I know.
Especially in the summer.
Especially when it's hot, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're thirsty, they're thirsty too.
Totally.
It reminds me of this story I heard once about a man who would put out water for animals every day.
Oh, wow.
And he noticed that like the same birds would come back again and again.
Wow.
Almost like they were thanking him.
That's so sweet.
I know, right?
It's amazing how animals can like sense that kindness, you know?
Yeah, totally. They totally can.
Yeah.
And the source material really emphasizes how animals are God's creation too.
Right.
You know, they deserve our care and respect.
It makes me think about the bigger picture of animal welfare, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how can we as a society do a better job of protecting animals?
That's a great question. And the source material also talks about supporting animal shelters.
Yeah.
Which is a really great way to make a difference.
Absolutely.
They give food, shelter, medical care to animals in need.
Yeah.
And they often rely a lot on donations and volunteers.
So it's not just about helping like individual animals, right?
Right.
It's about supporting a cause.
Exactly.
That promotes, compassion and responsible treatment of all creatures.
Yes. Exactly. It's a great reminder that charity isn't just about our own individual actions, but about supporting the groups and initiatives that are trying to make a better world.
For everyone.
For everyone, including animals, exactly.
This is really, eye-opening. Yeah. I'm starting to see how this idea of charity in Ramadan, it goes so much deeper than what we usually think about.
It really does.
It's amazing.
And that brings us to the next category,
okay,
which is acts of charity towards the environment.
Yes. This one I'm really curious about.
Yeah, it's a topic that's becoming more and more important.
Totally.
But it's cool to see how it's connected to these traditional teachings.
Right, exactly. You mentioned earlier how planting a tree could be considered an act of charity.
Yes.
I have to admit, that one really threw me for a loop.
I bet. It's not the first thing that comes to mind.
Not at all.
But when you consider all the benefits trees provide, it starts to make sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they clean the air, they give us shade, they stop the soil from eroding, they provide homes for animals.
And they're beautiful. I mean, I know when I'm stressed out, being in nature, around trees, it's so calming.
Totally.
It's like there's this connection,
It's like a deep connection. And the source material really drives home this point that caring for the environment, it's not just about saving resources for future generations. It's also about recognizing that nature has value in itself, and it's our duty to protect it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not just planting trees, right?
What else does the source material say?
Well, it talks about reducing waste, recycling, keeping our surroundings clean.
Okay.
Stuff that might seem small on their own.
Yeah.
But when we all do them together, it makes a big difference.
It's like think globally, act locally.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. You got it.
Like we can't solve all the world's problems, but we can each do our part.
Absolutely.
In our communities to make a difference.
And there's this really interesting example in the source material. It mentions saying Bismillah before you eat.
Oh, yeah.
And finishing all your food to prevent waste.
I love that.
Yeah.
It connects something so simple like eating with this deeper sense of gratitude and mindfulness.
Exactly.
It's like remembering that food is a blessing.
Yes.
And not taking it for granted.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even in our everyday actions, we can be thoughtful and responsible toward the environment.
I love that.
And speaking of being thoughtful, that brings us to the final category of charitable acts discussed in the source material, which is super interesting.
All right.
It's called ongoing charity, or Sadaqah Jariyah.
Yes. I've heard about that, but I'd love to hear more about it.
Okay, cool. So Sadaqah Jariyah refers to acts of charity that continue to benefit people even after you're gone.
Wow.
It's like planting a seed that keeps growing and bearing fruit.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I know, right?
It makes me think about leaving behind a legacy,
Yes, exactly.
Nothing that goes beyond my own lifetime.
Yeah. What are some examples of Sadaqah Jariyah?
Yeah.
Well, the source lists things like building wells or water fountains in places where clean water is scarce.
Wow.
Planting fruit trees that will give food for many years. Donating Islamic books and Qur'ans to mosques or libraries.
Okay.
Supporting orphans and their education.
Yeah.
Giving to build or maintain mosques and schools.
Right.
And even teaching beneficial knowledge.
Wait, teaching counts as Sadaqah Jariyah?
Absolutely. The source stresses that sharing knowledge, whether it's religious knowledge, practical skills, anything helpful, can be a super rewarding act of charity.
Wow.
The knowledge you share, it can keep spreading and impact people long after you're gone.
That's amazing.
I know, right?
It makes me think of all the teachers I've had who have really influenced me.
Yeah.
Their teachings still shape my thinking.
Totally.
Even years later.
And that's the beauty of Sadaqah Jariyah, right? You create something that keeps giving.
Yeah.
Even after you're not physically here anymore.
We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From acts of charity towards ourselves to acts that help animals, the environment, even future generations.
Right.
It's clear that this concept of charity in Ramadan, it's much broader than I ever realized.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? And what's really cool is that these acts, They're not presented as burdens or obligations, but as chances to grow spiritually, to improve ourselves, and to make a positive impact.
It's about realizing we're all connected.
Yes.
And that what we do, even small things, can have a ripple effect.
Exactly.
And make positive changes.
And it's about nurturing that sense of compassion, generosity, and service that should be in every part of our lives.
That brings us to a key point from the source.
Okay.
The importance of doing these acts of charity.
Yes.
Not just in Ramadan, but all year round.
Got it.
So it's not just about checking things off a list during 1 month.
Exactly.
But about living a life of giving and serving.
Exactly. Ramadan is a special time for heightened spiritual awareness and reflection, which makes it a perfect time to focus on these principles. Yeah. But the goal is to make them part of our daily lives.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But with so many options, where do we even start?
That's a great question, and the source offers some guidance on that.
It can feel a bit overwhelming, right?
Totally, but it's also exciting. The source material suggests we start with something small, something manageable, that you feel connected to.
Okay.
So maybe you commit to feeding stray animals once a week.
Okay.
Or planting a tree in your yard. Or making a conscious effort to cut back on food waste.
Yeah, I like that starting small thing.
Yeah.
It's way less intimidating and it feels like something you can actually do.
Right. It's about those small steps.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe those small things will inspire you to take on bigger challenges later.
Totally.
The source material also talks a lot about being sincere.
Okay.
You know, having the right intention.
Right.
It shouldn't be about showing off or impressing people.
Right. Yeah. It should be about truly wanting to make a difference.
Yeah.
And seeking God's pleasure through your actions.
Like they say, it's the thought that counts.
Exactly.
But here, it's more than just a thought, right?
All right. It's about taking action.
You got to actually do it.
Exactly. It's about aligning your actions with your values and trying to live a life that shows compassion, generosity, and a willingness to serve others.
So, to kind of wrap things up,
what
do you think the big takeaway is from all of this?
For me, it's that true charity is about way more than giving money or things. It's about having this spirit of giving in every part of your life.
I see.
It's about realizing that even the smallest things we do can make a difference.
Yeah.
And can create positive change around us.
It's like shifting our mindset from what can I get to what can I give.
Exactly. And that change in how you think can be really powerful.
Yeah.
It helps you see yourself as someone who can make a difference.
Someone who can contribute to a better, more compassionate world.
This deep dive has really got me thinking about my own approach to charity.
That's great.
And I'm seeing all these opportunities to give that I never noticed before.
I think that's the amazing thing about these teachings, you know?
Yeah.
They remind us that everyone can give, no matter what our salvation is.
It doesn't matter what you have or don't have.
Exactly. Whether it's a smile, a kind word, a helping hand.
Yeah.
Every little bit of kindness, no matter how small, it can make a huge difference.
So as we finish up, what's one thing our listeners can do today to put all of this into practice?
I'd say choose one act of charity that speaks to you, something you can commit to doing regularly, maybe every day, every week, or every month.
Yeah.
It could be something simple, like giving someone a sincere compliment, spending time with a relative who's lonely, or donating to a cause you care about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The important thing is to start somewhere and make giving a conscious part of your life.
And I think it's also important to notice the impact of those actions.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, how do they make you feel? How do they affect others?
Right.
When we pay attention to the good that comes from giving, it helps us feel more grateful and it makes us want to keep giving more.
It's like a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
The more you give, the more joy and fulfillment you get.
Right.
And the more you're inspired to keep giving.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It has.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Of course, it's been my pleasure.
And for helping us explore this whole idea of charity during Ramadan and beyond.
Absolutely. Remember, every little act of kindness can make a world of difference.
That's so true.
Let's all try to make giving a way of life, not just something we do during a certain time of year.
Okay, I love that. Until next time, keep diving deep, everyone.
Yes.
And keep spreading kindness.
لا إله إلا الله